I must say I was knocked sideways by an interview I heard here on Sky News just a couple of hours ago. An interview about Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, his very secretive visit to China this week. No media, few details, meetings with the Chinese Communist Party secretary in one province, a hardliner there, and with its organisation for influencing foreign governments. Now, there are some Australians, you know, business types who love China. They love China because they make money in China. And they keep praising and defending China. Maybe they mean it, I don't know. I'm talking about people like Geoff Raby. Now, Raby was our ambassador to China, now as head of a consultancy based there, which does suggest to me that if he criticises China, he loses his business. So it's no surprise at all to me to hear Raby on Sky today play down Daniel Andrews' visit, the secrecy, play it down, and blame the media instead for not being there with Andrews to report it all, even after Andrews banned them, right? He didn't want them coming with him. Now, Raby actually blamed Australian media outlets for not having their own journalists already in China, for pulling out the last two that we had there a couple of years ago after fears for their safety.
We haven't had any media in from Australia based in China since August 2020. That it was an overreaction by the Australian media outlets. Be that as it may, we need to get an Australian media presence on the ground. And this nervousness that our media companies have is very odd when you look at the fact that the leading BBC journalist in China is none other than Stephen McDonald, who's an Australian citizen. And many Australians are representing foreign media outlets in China quite happily.
And all said with that smug smile of a guy that will never have the Chinese police on his tail. No, because he's too helpful to that Chinese regime. I tell you, that's disgraceful. What Raby didn't mention is that one Australian journalist has been jailed in China for a couple of years now. He didn't mention her, did he? She's falsely accused of being a spy. That's Cheng Lei. Another Australian writer is also in jail, also falsely accused of spying. And what's more, the last two Australian journalists that were pulled out of China from the ABC and the Financial Review were told to flee after Chinese police harassed them, interviewed them, and told them they were being investigated for their ties with Cheng Lei, that so-called spy that hasn't seen her children in a couple of years now. So of course they left. Raby never would. Sure, China would never threaten him like that because he's an asset, he's tame. But for him, and he should know that, for him to sit in one of our studios and airily dismiss the threats to Australian journalists, one of whom is still in jail, I think is really low.